Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to discuss our 10th part of How to Reaccess Your Chess, 4th edition by International Master Jeremy Silman. And in today's part we are going to discuss about psychological meanderings, which is part 4 eventually. And we are going to discuss about a material, fear of taking or giving up the material. So we are going to discuss 9 critical diagrams. So now let's quickly check it out. So coming on to the first diagram, we have this position where the material is even. So how should white try to continue the position? First, playing the move rook f to e1 looks the most natural move. You're putting the rook on the open file. And now black plays the move rook to e8, challenging the rook, which also looks the most natural move. And here the most common move that comes into our mind is to perhaps to capture the rook, or perhaps to simply develop with king f2. But guys, the best move in the position is to play the move rook e6. And despite knowing this move, but there are many players who are simply afraid of playing such a move because you will be simply an exchange down. But guys, if black doesn't do anything, we are going to get another rook into the game and white will be simply better. The e6 square is the most ideal square for the rook. But then after being an exchange down, what's happening? Who is better? What is the advantages and disadvantages of the position we are going to look at? So first of all, black's rook is attacked. Second, white is having connected passed pawn. Third, black d6 and f6 pawns are extremely weak. Fourth, black knight and the bishop can sit on the most ideal square of d5. And sixth, the rooks, despite being an exchange up, if there are no open files, so there is no point of being an exchange up because rooks are meant to be an open file. If there are no open files, the rooks are extremely passive beings and white is already winning this game. So this was the very first diagram. You can already look at the topic psychological meanderings. So this was the very first diagram. So now let's move on to the second diagram. So coming on to the second diagram, we have, it's a game between Vasily Ivanchuk versus Pentela Harikrishna, and it was played many years back. And what's happening in this position? First of all, if you count the material, black is a solid pawn up. And if I just give this position to anybody around like 2000, they would already say that they would like to play with the black pieces because black is a pawn up. But guys, this position, if you try to assess this position deeply, you will realize that white is having sufficient counterplay, compensation against a pawn. So basically, there is a philosophy that learn to treat material gains and losses as you would any other imbalance. Yeah, it is like just giving up an exchange sacrifice. It's just an imbalance. You must not be afraid of giving such an exchange sacrifice. So first, so this was black to play, and Harikrishna played the move queen to d6. Rook c1, rook e8, rook c2, trying to put the rooks on the open file. a6, knight c4, you can't capture because the queen is hanging. So queen moves to knight to e3, rook c8, knight takes pawn, takes, and here after a couple of moves you will realize we have this position, and first of all white was able to simply equalize the material. Second, now white is looking for this weak pawns on the board and white is already better. We can easily claim that. So guys, yeah, this was the philosophy that learn to treat material gains and losses as you would in any other imbalances. And there is another philosophy that don't allow yourself to develop a fear of any aspect of the game. Once that fear becomes a habit, your ability to progress in chess would severely hamper. Positions with various forms of material inequality are the basis of many cases of psychological chess principles. Yes, this is the most important philosophy I've like in the book of chess. Like you must always take care of this, that if the aspect of fear comes into your mind, it eventually becomes a habit. And this will simply stop you from becoming a better chess player, improve your chess. So this was the second diagram. So now let's move on to the third diagram. So coming on to the third diagram, we have this was a game played by Peter Swidler, and Peter was playing with the white pieces, and he played the move e4 c5. And we have a Sicilian defense, and eventually we landed in this particular position where black is hitting the pawn on c2. So Peter played the move bishop g4. You can't capture the bishop because the queen is hanging. And after h6, broke into f5, very strong move. You can't capture the queen because the queen is hanging. And eventually, black was forced to put the queen on g7. now hitting the queen as well as the rook. So white was forced to move the queen. We have takes, and eventually, after being an exchange, giving an exchange sacrifice, now white is having a bishop and a pawn for a rook. So basically, now white is no longer losing the c2 pawn, and the position is very healthy for it. Rook e8, queen d6, and basically both the players play quite a number of moves, and we have this position over here. And after queen f4, Peter, it is still quite equal. If Peter would have played the move rook e8, and after queen f2 checking h1, h4, queen to c8, and now there are some perpetual ideas. But rook e4 was played in the game, and eventually, in this very position, Peter decided to resign the game, and here his opponent won the game. So does that mean that, like, Peter gave an exchange sacrifice, but it failed? So does that mean that Peter will never give an exchange sacrifice in the future? Exactly no. But by losing this game, he learned the experience, he gained the experience, and eventually he gained the upper knowledge of chess, and eventually he's going to be extremely strong players in the future. So this was the third diagram that you must never be afraid of giving exchange sacrifice. You just need to calculate. You just need logic versus fear. You must first put the logic first in your case. Always. So this was the third diagram. So now let's move on to the fourth diagram. So we have the fourth diagram. It is a very famous game between Boris Spassky versus Robert James Fischer from 1972, and it is the round number 13. It is called as one of the most popular game. We have e4 by Boris Spassky, and Fischer played the move knight f6. We have a couple of moves, and we landed in the position over here, knight e4. After knight e4, basically, Boris Spassky simply lost a pawn. And after here, how did Boris Spassky continue to play the game? He's simply a pawn down. But in the exchange of being a pawn down, he's having the open file, and he's having enough compensation to guarantee that he can recover. And basically, a couple of many moves were played in the game, and eventually, he simply made Robert Fischer to be passive. You can see how white is having such a harmonious position, and many moves were played in the game. We have such a position. You can see it now it's a drawish game. We have this position. It looks like many things are happening. You can see this position. The white black is having 5 pawns, and white is having single pawn, bishop, rook. So basically, in all the cases, Fischer is a pawn up. Basically, if I count the material, and eventually, in the end, basically, at some point over here, Boris Spassky made the blunder. He must play the move king to d4 for some reason. But okay, in the end, he basically resigned because he simply lost the game. So basically, sometimes going after material entails a certain level of risk, in much the same way that giving it up might be risky. Like, there are moments that when you think that giving up the material, it looks very risky, but sometimes even capturing the material also feels the same, because capturing the a4 pawn looks risky because it gives too much compensation to white. As you saw in the game, white was having such a harmonious position, but eventually, in the end, as we know, Bobby Fischer, he was a world champion, because that was the very reason he was able to hold the position. If there was any other guy at the place of him, he would have definitely lost the game. So this was the fourth diagram. So now let's move on to the fifth diagram. So coming down to the fifth diagram, we have this position on our board. So basically, what's happening in this position here is material is even, and here black is simply hitting the pawn on a3. Black is simply hammering the pawn. So how will you try to continue the position if you're black? Play the move queen b6. The reason is quite simple, because the queen is defending the pawn, and we want to simply remove the defender. Queen c3, rook a4. Trying to develop the rook. Knight here, takes, and bishop c5. A very strong move. The idea is to play bishop d4. Queen b2, takes, and eventually, now black is simply a held the pawn up and black is winning the game. So you can see how to convert a winning position, how to get a weakness and try to simply hammer it. You just need to try to remove the defender and you would be able to win the game. So this was the fifth diagram. So now let's move on to the sixth diagram. So now coming on to the sixth diagram, I consider this diagram as one of the most craziest diagrams. C4, G6, and also one of the most interesting E6. We have this game, Queen B6, Knight C3 takes Knight D5. After Knight D5, here we have the game D into E3. Takes E into F2, King B3. We have this position. What's happening in this position? Basically, black's having two pieces and pawn against a queen. So it should be winning for white, right? Definitely it should. It's right to play though, but it should be winning. Yes, remember, if you create imbalanced vision and make the search for an understanding of imbalances and addiction, your playing strength will take a quantum leap forward. Basically, if you get the knowledge about the compensation, imbalance, vision, the knowledge of your game is simply going to be extremely high. Like what happened in the game here is, despite being such a material down from black side, let's see how black was able to play this game. Queen d2, knight c6, knight c3. Basically, black simply developing the pieces. So basically, what's happening here? First, before starting, I want to discuss what's happening. So first of all, black is having the open fight. Second, the king is extremely weak compared to black's king. Black's king is extremely safe. Third, black is having no weak points. Like everything is well protected. Black can play very steadily. Third, the bastard bishop is simply a monster on g7, so it can simply pamper every dark square. And yeah, there are weak squares like e4 on the board, c4 perhaps, and yeah, it's the trouble. So basically, after queen d2 trying to defend the b2 pawn now, knight c6, knight f6, check, short castle, knight here, check. Basically, yeah, d4 square is also a weak square, weak hole for black to come on it. d6, bishop here, knight here. Basically, you can't capture because you lose the queen and eventually the game. Queen b5, rook a5, rook a8, a3, b5. Very strong move. You can't capture because the queen is hanging. Queen c2 takes. If you try to capture here, rook c5 is already winning now. So bishop e2 check, knight here, b5, rook a4, b4 takes, rook b8, and eventually just crushing position slowly and steadily. And yeah, bishop here, it was a nice move. You can't capture because queen into e6 would give a white a good amount of counterplay. So rook f8, simply defending, king g7, e6, takes. And eventually, after a couple of moves were played in the game, white decides to resign the game after rook e3. As the g3 is falling, and eventually black would able to make the queen and win the game. So you can see how, despite having such a horrible imbalance, black was still able to convert such a game. So what you must see here is, like, if you count the material, black is simply down like around 2 points, but you just need to understand the position. Once your understanding about the position simply grows up, you will realize that giving an exchange sacrifice is not a big thing. You can even give a queen sacrifice. There are many games where your opponent gives queen sacrifice and have a finishing blow. So this was an instructive example of imbalance. So this was the sixth diagram. So now let's move on to the seventh diagram. Okay, so we have the seventh diagram on our board. So it was a game. Yeah, it was a normal game, and we have this position. We have this very position. So what's happening if we count the material? White is having 6 pawns, black is having 6 pawns. Materially, it's equal. But what's the main thing here is, what is imbalance? Black is having the weak king. Second, white is having, in exchange of the weak king, white is having a very dirty pawn structure. Once black is able to safeguard his king, white is going to face tremendous issues in the end game. So how will you try to continue the game? White played the move g5, trying to open up the black king. And here black played the move bishop to g6. What white was hoping here is, if black captures the pawn, queen h5 simply winning after bishop g6 takes. And now it's completely over for black, I would say. But black played the move bishop g6 and like making a fortress. And eventually, if you see that these pawns are extremely weak, after bishop f4, bishop e7, rook f2, we have this position, and black simply give an exchange sacrifice. Queen into e5, and after it takes, king h1, and both the players agreed to a draw. But after knight into e4, you can't capture the knight because after bishop into e4, it's winning for black now. So here we have bishop d3, takes, rook takes, pawn takes, queen takes, and this position is quite complex position, hard to assess, though this position is still equal in terms of engine. But yeah, it's practically speaking, there are many imbalances, so yeah, anything can happen. But eventually, both the players claim to draw in this very position. So you can see how you can understand the position that currently black's king is weak, but once he is able to prevent his king, now white have to solve his problems. And this is how you must understand the chess imbalances. So this was the 7th diagram. So now let's move on to the 8th diagram. So now coming on to the 8th diagram, we have it was fill in defense. It's just a fill in defense. It is a very common opening. Takes. We here g4, and this position is considered as better for white in previous days. But nowadays, after rook h8, it is considered as equal. And after g5, it looks already completely destroyable for black, because after if you move the knight d5, and white is having a good amount of counterplay, and it looks like white would be able to support the point. Like f6 is coming in, knight into e7 is coming in, many things are happening basically. But here after g5, rook into c3 is the move, giving an exchange sacrifice. And after g into f6, takes, bishop into, what's happening if we count the material? If you count the material, white's having 6 pawns, black is having 7 pawns, and bishop and versus rook. We have this compensation, this imbalance. So what's happening in this position? Is white better or is black better? This position we can consider it as an equal, because black is having sufficient compensation against the rook. The dark square bishop is extremely active. White's king is comparatively weak compared to the black king. And after playing the move c3, trying to restrict the black bishop, rook c8, e3, rook c4, you can see how now black is hammering basically the e4 pawn, try to take advantage of this compensation of this exchange sacrifice. b5, queen c7, takes, a5. And basically the important thing of the fianchetto bishop, it is also known as the fianchetto bishop whenever we develop the bishop like this, it is a saying that if you are having the fianchetto bishop, that there can't be any attack in the future. Rook f1, queen b7, hitting this pawn now, you have to defend, and after b4, a4, you can see how black is the one simply hammering the position and simply taking control of the position. White is the only one defending, and black is the one playing actively and playing happily. So this was the 8th diagram. You must think of this compensation. You must see this compensation, what's happening. You must find imbalance in order to become a good chess player. So this was the 8th diagram. So now let's move on to the 9th diagram. So now coming on to the 9th diagram, we have a Catalan opening by white. And after takes, c5, so castle knight c6, queen a4, pinning up the knight. Black captures the pawn, takes, queen takes, bishop takes, and it looks like it's winning for white now. But after bishop into c6, we play the move bishop d7. Rook d1, you can't move the queen because it would be completely winning for white. So here we have queen into rook, takes. And what's happening in this position? Again, an imbalance. White's having the queen, black is having 8 points, the rook and the bishop. If I count my pawns, pawns are equal. Black is the pawn. So material-wise, the position is e1. So what's happening? It's an imbalance. Is white better or is black better? What's happening? So first of all, we can already claim this position as a very solid position for black. The reason is quite simple. If I just continue a couple of moves, we have this position. We can already claim that black is having no real weakness in this particular position. And black is too solid. Black can play the move rook b8, rook c8, and can play happily. Black is having the white square's domination, and black is too solid. There are no real weakness which white can attack. So we can already claim that black is having no real issues, and black is maybe equal. Knight c3, rook d8, knight d5, happily trading off the knight, rook c8, bishop f8 defending, bishop c6, rook d8. White tries to attack, which is very logical. You are a materialium. King h2, a6, rook here, and basically after here, bishop d6, and both the players repeated. So what's happening? Why didn't White able to win the game? What's happening? So basically, despite having a queen against the rook and the bishop, as I said, that Black is having no real weaknesses. Tell me in the comment box a single weakness for White, and I will simply, reward you. And there is no way you can find any weakness for Black because there is any weakness. So that is the very reason that Black can simply happily play this position, and there are no weakness, and eventually the game ended in a draw by agreement. So this was the ninth diagram. You can understand, I guess, your knowledge about imbalance of chess is improving steadily. So this was the ninth diagram. So now we are going to jump on to our last diagram of the day, the 10th diagram. So now finally coming on to the final diagram of the day, we have martial attack. All those who played, nice. And here we have d5, the main move. And after d5 takes, knight takes, and here after c6, you will realize, if we count the material, White is a pawn up. But in the exchange, Black is having sufficient counterplay. And despite being a pawn down, even in the end game, Black is having sufficient compensation against the pawn that eventually it makes a draw. So basically, in the martial attack, Black is having good chances to equalize the game. But if White went wrong, Black can simply knock off the game. So after c6, for example, if White plays the move d4, bishop d6, rook goes back, queen h4, g3, because queen into h3 is a very deadly threat. If you play the here, bishop into h3 is already very deadly. So you must play the move g3, queen h3, rook e4, g5, taking away the square. You can't capture the pawn because of queen f5, and White loses the material. Queen f1, trading off the queen, bishop f5, h6, takes it. And you will realize how White simply gave an exchange. But in the exchange, White's having the connected pass pawn, and White can slowly and steadily try to use the connected pass pawn, try to grab space, and we have an imbalance of the position. So yeah, it doesn't matter about like you are winning after they are giving an exchange sacrifice or not. You must, if you have the perfect knowledge about the chess, if you can assess the position better, you can play with either side, but you will win the game. So this was the position. Now coming to the game, there is a game now. c6, g3, bishop knight f6, bishop d6, bishop g4, queen d3, c5, opening up the position. And you can see White is still a pawn. g5, takes, rook d7. And you can see how, despite being a pawn down, Black is having sufficient counterplay. And eventually, after a couple of moves, Black simply gave a perpetual to White, and it was a draw. So this was the 10th diagram. You can see how the opening martial attack. This is known as the martial attack. You can definitely play with this with the black pieces. It's extremely playable after c6. So yeah, this was the 10th diagram, 10 critical diagrams. I hope that this video might have helped you to improve your chess. If it did, then make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone. Subscribe to our channel if you are new to our channel, because I'm going to come up with these interesting videos like this, because we have a complete book to cover in the near future. So I'm going to see you soon. Till then, stay tuned and keep watching One Shot Chess.